The heart of a lush valley, surrounded by rolling hills and whispering forests, lay the village of Nyaniko. Life in the village was simple. Days were spent tending to fields, herding animals, and gathering by the river to exchange stories. But the centerpiece of the village was its church, St. Mary's Chapel, a humble stone building that seems to radiate peace and sanctity. Adama was a quiet woman in her early 30s, known for her kind heart. Despite her outward composure, Adama carried a burden. For years, she struggled to find purpose in her life. Her parents had passed when she was young, and though she lived with her aunt, she often felt like a shadow in her own life, drifting without direction. One night, Adama had a vivid dream. She found herself standing in the church, the candle flickering as though moved by an invisible wind. Before her stood a man in white robes, his face obscured by light. He pointed toward the altar, and in a voice that seems to echo in her soul, he said, "Your path is here. Seek it, and you shall find it." When Adama awake, the words lingered in her mind like a melody she could not forget. She could not shake the feelings that the dream was more than just her imagination. That Sunday, she went to the church, hoping to find answer. Father Matthias, the village priest, was a wise and a compassionate man who had served the community for decades. Adama approached him after the service and recanted her dream. He listened intently, his withered face thoughtful. "Adama," he said gently, "visions are rare and precious. Perhaps this is a calling, but a calling is not always clear at first. You must pray and meditate on this. Open your heart to God's guidance." Adama took his advice to heart. Every evening, he would sit quietly in the church, seeking clarity. Days turned into weeks, and she began to feel a growing sense of peace. However, her dreams returned, each one more intense than the last. In one dream, she saw herself preaching to a crowd in the church. In another, she was leading a group of children in songs and prayer. Father Matthias suggested she takes on more responsibilities in the church. She started by helping with the children chorus and organizing charity events. For the first time in her life, Adama felt a sense of fulfillment, yet doubt lingered in her mind. One day, as Adama cleaned the church pews, a stranger walked in. He was a tall man with a commanding presence and a voice that carried wisdom, introducing himself as Brother Kofi, a traveling evangelist. He said he had been drawn to the village by a dream of his own. Brother Kofi spoke to the villagers about faith, hope, and the power of visions. When Adama shared his experiences with him, his eye lit up. "Adama," he said, "your visions are a gift. But the question is, are you ready to embrace your destiny? Sometimes God calls us to step beyond our comfort zone. Your path may be to serve here, or perhaps it is to take His words to another place." The idea unsettled Adama. She loved her village and felt rooted in St. Mary's Chapel. But Brother Kofi's word planted a seed of doubt. Could her calling be bigger than she had imagined? The village too began to murmur. Some saw Adama as a chosen one, destined for greatness. Others questioned her visions, whispering that she might be imagining things for attention. Adama found herself caught in a storm of opinion, unsure of what to believe. One evening, as she prayed alone in the church, she had another vision. This time, she saw the chapel in flames. The villagers gathered outside, weeping. Amid the chaos, a voice whispered, "To rebuild, one must let go. To serve, one must step forward." Adama awake in a cold sweat, the vision haunting her. She rushed to Father Matthias, seeking counsel. But even he seems unsure. "Visions are not always literal," he said. "Sometimes they are metaphor, but only you can decide what they mean." As the days passed, the church became a place of both comfort and conflict for Adama. It was where she felt closest to her calling. Yet it was also the source of her greatest confusion. Brother Kofi urged her to leave the village and join him in his travels, promising that she would find her purpose on the road. Father Matthias, on the other hand, believed her place was in Nyaniko, where she had already begun to make a difference. Caught between these two paths, Adama found herself at a crossroad. The visions became more frequent, each one urging her to take action, but the message remained critics. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills, Adama stood at the church door, looking out at the village she loved. The voices of the villagers, Father Matthias, and Brother Kofi echo in her mind. Her heart ached. Okay, maybe your role is not to maintain the church as it is, but to transform it into something greater. His words stayed with her as she returned to the village. She decided to share her vision with Father Matthias. He listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. "Adama," he said, after a long silence, "the church has stood for generations, a beacon of faith for this village. But faith is not bound by walls. If you believe your calling is to bring change, then perhaps you must start by helping the people see that faith lives within them, not just in this building." Adama felt torn. On one hand, She was deeply attached to the church and its traditions. On the other, she could not ignore the growing feelings that her visions were calling her to something more. That evening, she called a meeting in the village square. The entire community gathered, curious and apprehensive. Adama stood before them, her heart pounding. "I have had many visions," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I believe they are calling me to help this village in a new way. The church will always be our foundation, but faith is not just about this building. It's about how we live, how we support one another, and how we grow." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others looking skeptical. An elder, Mama Njeri, raised her hand. "And what will this change look like?" "Adama, what are you saying? What are you asking of us?" "I am asking for trust," Adama said. "Trust that together we can create something beautiful. I don't have all the answers yet, but I believe that if we work together, we can strengthen our faith and our community." Her words sparked a heated debate. Some villagers supported her vision, inspired by her courage and passion. Others clung to tradition, fearful of what change might bring. As the meeting ended, Adama felt both hopeful and uncertain. She had taken the first step, but the path ahead was still unclear. That night, as she stood outside St. Mary's Chapel, gazing at the stars, she whispered a prayer. "Lord, guide me, show me the way, and give me the strength to walk it." Far above, the stars shimmer, silent witnesses to her journey. Adama knew she had embarked on something far greater than herself. Her visions, whatever lay ahead, she had determined to follow the path her visions had laid before her. Days that followed, Adama's speech in the village square were filled with tension and anticipation. Some villagers began to rally around her, inspired by her vision and her courage to speak out. They saw her as a beacon of hope, someone who could lead them to a brighter future. Others, however, resisted. They were wary of change, afraid that straying from tradition might bring misfortune. Among the skeptics was Juma, the village carpenter. Juma had grown up in Nyaniko and spent his life maintaining the chapel. He believed the church was sacred and should remain unchanged. Adama's ideas sound like rebellion. He muttered to anyone who could listen. "The church is fine as it is. Why meddle with what is not broken?" Despite the vision, Adama pressed on. She started small, gathering those who supported her to discuss ideas for revitalizing the community. One of her earlier supporters was a young teacher named Amani, who suggested using the church not only for worship but also as a space for education and skill building. "We can teach the children during the week and hold worships for adults," Amani said. "That way, the church becomes a hub for learning as well as faith. Adama loved the idea, but implementing it proved to be a challenge. Convincing Father Matthias took hours of discussion, and even then, he remained conscious. Change must be gradual, Adama, he said. People need time to adjust. Meanwhile, Brother Kofi continued to encourage her. He taught her how to communicate her vision more effectively, emphasizing importance of patience and persistence. The seed you plant today will not sprout overnight, he told her, but with care and faith, it will grow. One day, as Adama and her group prepared to hold their community workshop in the church, disaster struck. A storm rolled in suddenly. It faced a wind tearing through the village. St. Mary's Chapel, with its aging roof, was badly damaged. Part of the ceiling collapsed, leaving the altar exposed to the elements. The storm left the villagers shaking. Many saw the damage to the chapel as a bad omen, a punishment for questioning tradition. This is what happens when we stray from the old ways, Juma declared, his voice ringing with conviction. Adama, however, saw the storm as a sign of different kind. Standing before the ruined chapel, she felt a strange calm. She remembered her vision of the church in ruins and the lily growing in the arches. This is not the end, she told the gathered villagers. It is a new beginning. We can rebuild not just the church, but our community, stronger and better than before. Her words sparked a fierce debate. Some villagers were inspired, while others accused her of bringing misfortune. The vision grew deeper, and Adama began to doubt herself. One night, as she prayed in the remnant of the chapel, she heard a voice behind her. It was Juma. "I don't understand you, Adama," he said, his tone softening. "Why can't you just leave things as they are?" "Because I believe we can be more," Adama replied. "The storm did not destroy us, Juma. It gives us a chance to rebuild, to create something that reflects who we are today, not just who we were in the past." Juma stared at her for a long moment before saying, "If you are so determined, then I'll to help, but don't expect me to agree with everything you are doing." His words were a small victory, and Adama clung to them as she threw herself into the work of rebuilding. She organized fundraisers, brought in materials from neighboring villages, and enlisted the help of anyone willing to lend a hand. As the day turned into weeks, the villagers began to see the chapel transforming than the old one. Inside, a section was set aside for Amani's classroom, complete with bookshelves and desks. But the vision in the village remained. Some refused to set foot in the church, claiming it has lost its sanity. Others questioned Adama's leadership, accusing her of prioritizing her vision over the community need. Adama knew she could not win everyone over, but she remained steadfast. She continued to pray for guidance, and her dreams became less frequent, but more vivid. In one, she saw herself standing in the middle of the chapel, surrounded by villagers of all ages. Their faces lit with joy. The voice whispered again. The gardener turned to soil, but the harvest is not hers alone. The vision gave her strength, but it also left her wondering, what was the harvest, and will she live to see it? Thanks for watching this video. If you want us to continue this story, tell us in the comment section. Like, share and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Hey.